Welcome, RC Fischer. You are the first analyst to have a second appearance on the Mind of Mansion in this year of our Lord, 2024.
Oh my goodness. I did not know that. That is a high honor.
You
Appreciate
are
it
the most
very much.
requested guest we've ever had.
That's an even higher honor. Appreciate that from the audience.
I feel like I told you this before.
I just like to hear it over and over again.
Yeah. No, you know. You know the people love it. And I'm not going to tease future hot take segments, blazing hot, like near the corona of the sun, hot. Let's get right to it. You have Malik Nabers ahead of Marvin Harrison. You like Malik Nabers almost as much as the Giants general manager liked Malik Nabers, as we could tell on the Hard Knocks program and watching some Hard Knocks. And it's interesting. Brian Daboll comes out well. Okay, that Brian Daboll looks really smart. I mean, you're talking about a football guy. I would hire Brian Daboll to be my coach. Would you?
I could take him or leave him. I'm still thrown by it. I don't know if I want to be associated with the general manager of the New York Giants right now.
No. Joel Schoen's no good.
Yeah.
Like Joel Schoen, he's one of these people where you can tell he has imposter syndrome because he's an imposter.
That is a perfect phraseology.
Yeah. If I had to pick one person in the world who I know has imposter syndrome because they are an imposter, it would be Joe Schoen, the general manager of the Giants. He has risen to his level of inability in the organization because he brags that he came up from he was an area scout and he moved up and he had every role, director of player personnel, all of those things. At some point, they should have said, "Hey, you're good here. This is about right. This is about right." Daboll, though, I think Daboll belongs in the ranks of the head coaches of the NFL, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, you got to give him credit for getting that team to the playoffs a couple of years ago.
Yes. Yeah. And when you watch the behind-the-scenes footage, and there's a lot of behind-the-scenes footage I didn't think we were going to get. I didn't think they were going to be as transparent as they are. And especially in the interview process, the way Daboll interviews prospects, I really appreciate and I respect. He's just a very smart, sharp guy. I would hire him. I would not hire Joe Schoen. Joe Schoen's clearly getting run over by agents and other general managers on the show, and it's fun to watch. Like, that aspect of it's pretty fun. They loved Nabers, and they got their guy. They just stayed pat. They stick and pick, and they got Nabers. And there's a lot of fantasy analysts out there, especially people in the Dynasty community. The Dynasty community is the savviest of all. They knew Nabers. They knew that it would be a debate, that it was worth the debate, that it wasn't just a situation where you just pencil in Marvin Harrison and the question is it's a debate between Odunze and Nabers. No. The real debate that played out in the early months of this year was Nabers versus Harrison. And you ended up on the Nabers side of the argument, I believe. So break it down for me. Why is Nabers a better wide receiver prospect than Marvin Harrison?
If you name an aspect of being an NFL wide receiver, route running, speed, hands, whatever you want to throw out there, Nabers is better than Marvin Harrison in every category I would look at right down the list. Check.
We're talking about Rachaad White versus Bucky Irving level superior in every way.
Now, I wouldn't go that far.
Okay. Because you wouldn't go that far because that is a chasm.
That may be the largest chasm in the NFL.
There. He said it. Okay. We will talk Rachaad White. That was your best take ever That was the take of the year. You won take of the year in the Player Profiler annual awards ceremony. Congratulations for that. That Rashad White would outscore Bijan Robinson in 2023. You were mocked for that position, and it's what happened, and everyone has to eat it. And now you're saying not only is Nabers the best receiver in this class, maybe in recent memory, but he's far superior to Marvin Harrison.
Yes, I would say superior, maybe bordering on far superior.
Okay, so let's start with Nabers. Why do you like Nabers so much?
Just in a quick statement, the best way I can put it, anytime I talk about Nabers, I always run back to from the first time that I saw him to a couple years ago to starting to scout him for this season. Nabers is one of those guys when you put on the tape, and I watch hundreds of wide receivers per year at all the different levels. So I see them all. I'm looking to be impressed, and I'm rarely taken aback by something spectacular I'm watching on tape. Usually everybody looks some variation of a BC grade wide receiver. When I watch Nabers, within the first couple plays, you're like, oh my God, this guy's a star. Like I watched Marvin Harrison first a couple years ago, and then again this year. I scouted and watched Marvin Harrison and went, okay, all right. Then as soon as then it's to Nabers because that's the order they've been in. As soon as I watch Nabers, I'm like, oh, there's no contest. You could see it in a couple of plays. There's no contest.
So I just drafted at the FSGA, right? It was the FSTA, now it's the FSGA. And Billy thanks to Billy Muzio, he got me into one of the top expert leagues at the FSGA. So I was drafting against some real heavyweights out there. And it was broadcast live on Sirius XM, and I was there with Jeff Radcliffe, and I started my first pick at the 103. I was at the 103 RC. It's a good place to be. 14-team league with the 103. I took Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Excellent.
Okay? I took Amon-Ra St. Brown. Not Tyreek Hill. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Because I am skating to where the puck is going to be, not where it was last year. That's the best way I can explain that to people. Okay? When Amon-Ra goes out and has 180 targets with a healthy oblique and leads the league in targets, receptions, but also because he has like 85th percentile explosiveness, burst score, he's a better downfield and yards after the catch threat than most people assume. They think of him as this slot receiver. He's not a slot receiver. He's no more a slot receiver than Marvin Harrison Sr. was a slot receiver. If you want Marvin Harrison Sr., go draft Amon-Ra St. Brown and enjoy league-leading receptions year in, year out. The only way that he's not going to lead the league in receptions in a high pass volume offense like Detroit with no other wide receivers competing for targets with him at all, none. The only way is if he tears an oblique. But the thing is,
that may not even stop him.
That wouldn't stop him. And we know that because that happened last year and it did not stop him. That was the most underreported injury from last season. Like he didn't even let anyone know that he was playing through that. That's something that no one would play through. In my lifetime, the toughest player in the NFL has never been a receiver that I can remember until now. It's always been a linebacker. It's always been somebody on the a guard. There's always somebody, right? There's somebody that's taking a shit behind the bench and in his pants and then bragging about it, with blood streaming down his goatee, and just the toughest dude, the guy that is the nails of the league is usually someone in the trenches. But now for the first time we have it as a receiver. The toughest guy in the league is a receiver. So that was why I went with that. So that was my explanation. And then at the end of the second round, I thought this was a smash. This was also, there were oohs and ahs in the room, RC. Oohs and ahs, because I dared to violate ADP by like 8 slots.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. Right? And Jalen Waddle was right there. Right? Jalen Waddle was right there. I could have drafted Jalen Waddle, would have been happy with it, wanted Jalen Waddle. But then I was like, wait a second. I could get a guy that's better than Jalen Waddle with a similar quarterback and no Tyreek Hill. So I'm just going to go ahead and draft Malik Nabers instead. And again, Marvin Harrison long gone. Okay, and I'm thrilled, ecstatic to get Nabers. By the way, can you guess who came back around at the beginning of the third round? Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle.
Wow.
So I ended up, it's start 3 receivers, ended up starting receiver. And so I went pure 0 RB. And it's 0 RB because my RB1 is Najee Harris.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Najee Harris a bit later. I know you're not a big Najee Harris fan, but this is fantasy football. And sometimes running backs
situationally smart. Yeah.
That we don't love. Running backs that we don't love need to be drafted at some point. And there's if you take only sex, if you're a sex only in fantasy drafts, that team's not going to win. There's never been a sex only team that's won in fantasy football. The best fantasy players always have some gritty, grimy, disgusting players that they're not excited about drafting, but they just know it's the right thing to do. Second round in a fantasy football draft, Malik Nabers to the Podfather. And my reputation is now at stake.
That's right. But if you're trying to win the big prize, those are the type of players, those are the type of guys you're willing to reach for. In a perfect situation, I mean, his situation from who he's surrounded by isn't far off of what Amon-Ra St. Brown has got. Almost a clear path to heavy targeting and consistency. With the Giants, Nabers could see double-digit targets every single game.
Yeah. And these guys are adept at double moves to make big plays. They're great at double moves. They have great footwork and explosiveness to execute double moves. And they're great after the catch. They're both yak gods. You think Amon-Ra St. Brown is easy to tackle? You think Malik Nabers is easy to tackle? Ha! What's the difference between Jamar Chase and Malik Nabers? When you watch them, isn't it kind of eerie when they're both in an LSU uniform?
Yeah, you can throw back in his prime Odell Beckham in there as well. The only difference between them now is one has Burrow and one has Daniel Jones. But if you get past that, you might have a big-time winner who just gets heavy targets on a team that may struggle for offense, may be down in games and throwing a lot more. I'm sure they're not going to build their offense around Devin Singletary. So
motor.
They drafted Nabers with a purpose. I'm sure they're going to go down with the ship behind Nabers, not Wan'Dale Robinson.
Not Darius Slayton. Not Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah, those are all fine complementary players. We need Jalen Hyatt to just take coverage downfield away so that Nabers can work all over the place.
Do you think Jalen Hyatt's a fine complementary player? If you were an NFL team, would you have Jalen Hyatt on the roster?
If I'm wanting Nabers to have a lot of space to work with, I'll take a Jalen Hyatt on the outside to just do what like the Kansas City Chiefs do. Just send them deep, take coverage downfield so that Nabers can work everywhere else while you're taking coverage.
But the nice thing is they also have Wan'Dale, so Wan'Dale can set picks for him. I think you could put Slayton or Hyatt on the left side, put him out at X, and just be an ex decoy. And then you have Wandale and Nabers playing off each other. They both have high football IQs. They're both great after the catch. I like that. I kind of like that duo on the right-hand side, and that's what Daniel Jones needs. He needs short and intermediate targets that are separating horizontally. That's the way he's going to succeed. And if he can home in on those two, and they can call plays designed to get one of those two into space, I think that's the path to success for that offense.
And that's what we're going to see. That's not a great offensive line. That's not going to be a great running attack. They've all tipped their hand that they're going in on, this is Daniel Jones's team and this is his time. That I don't love Daniel Jones, but I just need him to deliver passes to the appropriate people, and especially to Nabers. I don't care what the other outcomes are.
I will say, day one of free agency, who did the Giants sign? A tackle and a guard. So they are improving the offensive line, which
Hopefully.
Daniel Jones needs that too. He needs Nabers and a better offensive line. So I think Daniel Jones late round value this year, if he can, fully recover from this ACL tear, get his mobility back, that double stack of Daniel Jones with Nabers and Wandale, that's a nice little best ball stack.
There could be numbers. There could be a lot higher pace of play and offensive snap and target count more than Jones has probably had in his career.
Right,
is built for this year.
They're not going to grind it out with Devin Singletary and Eric Gray. That's not going to happen. Even Tyrone Tracy, like they have satellite backs. They don't have any between the tackles running backs. They've gone to all satellite backs. This is what Tennessee did. And everyone's talking about how Tennessee's going to be throwing the ball, and this is the case for Will Levis. This is the case for Hopkins and Ridley. Well, this is what they're going to do in New York, too. New York's sending the same signals. They dumped Saquon Barkley in order to sign 2 offensive linemen. That's what they did on day one of free agency.
No, they're still waiting for Saquon to call them back to match the offer. They didn't dump him. Still sitting by the phone still.
I took a lot of criticism in the comments when I told people that I would be a top 10 general manager in the league on day one if a team ever hired me. And I watched Hard Knocks Giants, and I'm like, you see? It's so, what? Oh, my, yeah. So, the way that I would structure the front office, the tasks everyone would be doing, the amount that I would be on the phone, and the way I would be communicating and the way we would be doing our decision trees would be light years ahead in terms of sophistication. So Nabers essentially is Jamar Chase. He was drafted where Jamar Chase was. He put up Jamar Chase level numbers at LSU, just didn't have Joe Burrow at LSU, had more of a running quarterback. Imagine if they had Joe Burrow instead of a quarterback that was pulling all these pass attempts out of the offense at LSU. Nabers would have been even more impressive.
NFL-wise, I thought Arizona might, and if I was the Arizona GM, I would have picked Nabers for NFL purposes beyond the fantasy purposes.
Well, Nick Saban said that the guy that he wanted was Nabers. He was the problem for Alabama. What about Harrison? Why not Harrison?
I watched probably more Marvin Harrison tape than any player in this year's draft because I won't say I was instantly against him as much as I saw how he was being valued by the NFL draft, and in fantasy because of the name value. And when I watch the tape, I'm like, this does not match up. I do not see this God among men at wide receiver when I watch the tape. So I've gone back 3 different times going through every target that he had last year to try to see, am I missing, what am I missing? Why am I one of the rare few people that are saying this guy is just good to mediocre, especially comparative to this class that's so awesome? Maybe if he was in last year's class, we have a different conversation, but with this year's class, I mean, you watch Nabers, you're in awe. You watch Lad McConkey, you're in awe. You watch Odunze, you're in awe. Then I watch Harrison, and I'm like, I just don't see it. So it's not like I'm against all the obvious wide receivers. Harrison just sticks out. When I watch him play, I don't see anything special as a route runner. I see him going down the sidelines deep a lot, which is not going to be good for fantasy football because he's always covered. His highlight plays in college are him going up over the top of corners who are glued to him, but he makes a nice catch, or he makes a nice comeback catch, which that's great. But in the NFL, he's going to be playing the Max Meltons, who had no problem with him. Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame had no problem with him. I watched corner after corner that were drafted this year or going to be drafted highly next year. They had no real problems with him. He can catch fine. He can run the routes that the way that they're drawn up, but he's not like a Lad McConkey type of route runner, not even a Nabers route runner. He's just quality, competent. And the things you always hear about Marvin Harrison from the OTAs, you hear, "Oh my goodness, Malik Nabers, you got to see what he did. You got to see this. You got to see that." What do I hear about Marvin Harrison from OTAs? That guy's after practice a lot, working on the jugs machine. He needs to stop working so hard. Like, people want Marvin Harrison to stop working so hard. That's the greatest compliment he gets, is he talks a good game. I want to be the best wide receiver. I'm on the jugs machine. Like, Malik Nabers just rolls out of bed. If he hadn't caught a pass in a month, he'd roll out of bed the next day and be a better receiver than Marvin Harrison, who's on the jugs machine 24 hours a day. Like, he needs to be on the jugs machine, because when I was watching his tape, there are a lot of drops on the Marvin Harrison tape, especially when you get to him facing the better defenses. Everybody watches the highlight tape of him, and it always starts out with the way their schedule was laid out. Youngstown State, Western Kentucky. He burned a guy and got open deep and got a long touchdown. It's one of the first things you see. It's one of the first things they show. But, like, he ain't facing Youngstown State defensive backs in the NFL. And when he faced Max Melton and other guys in the Big Ten, he was average. He got a lot of targets when they were playing Rutgers and Melton wasn't on them. When he'd go to the other side, he'd get his targets. He'd
Is
get his
that Bo
catches. He'd
Melton's
get some
brother?
yards. Yeah, I believe so.
Wow, awesome.
Max
Melton's
Melton
great.
now.
I want Max Melton on my team. If he's
Oh,
related to Bo Melton.
yeah. Both are good.
Yeah.
And I was almost going to say both are better than Marvin Harrison, but I won't say it. I don't want that to be.
And we're not going to say, hey, and I know what people are thinking. We're not going to say that Marvin Harrison Jr. is the Bronny James of the NFL. We're not saying that.
No.
We're not saying that. And people want us to say, hey, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the Bronny James of the NFL. And you quote that and you put it on social media. I didn't say that. I just said I didn't say that. No one's saying that. But
to be clear, he is not. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not the Bronny James of the NFL.
He's not Bronny James. He's not. But when a receiver comes from or an athlete of any kind comes from a royal family, a royal athletic family, whether it be, Tiger Woods' son, Marvin Harrison's son, Peyton Manning's son, whoever it is. Look at the pomp and circumstance surrounding Arch Manning at Texas. Now, I believe Arch Manning is amazing. And Arch Manning is going to be amazing. And that I actually, for the first time ever, think that Arch Manning's parents are going too far. And that it's about their ego. It's about the grandfather and the parents, and it's about their ego. Let's actually show the world how hard we can be and how limiting we can be on our son. And then when he goes out and succeeds at a high level, they'll all look back at us and what great parents, and we're the model for how to do this. Even though he was going to be as successful as he's going to be, whether or not they insisted that he watch from the bench or not. I mean, Quinn Ewers, I saw like there are futures on Quinn Ewers being player of the year in the NCAA. That is the last player I would bet on.
Could short that as a stock. I wish I could short
that
it.
Is dangerous. No matter how good he is, he's not better than Arch Manning. And he's any time that you're not the best quarterback on your team, that's not a player that should be bet on for player of the year. All the best to Quinn Ewers. I know he's performed well. He's certainly surrounded with enough weaponry. He should. So you could argue he's been getting the bare minimum out of what he has. I mean, look at the counting stats for Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell last year. And everyone's wondering, why weren't they more productive? Why weren't they more productive? Because they didn't have Arch Manning under center. That's why. And that's because the parents and the grandparents of Arch Manning are conspiring against him for their own personal benefit and egos. And then he's going to be amazing regardless at some point, whether it's his junior year or whatever. He's going to come in, he's going to have 50 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and then it's going to be on. It's going to be great. So of course it's possible that you have a great gene pool to pull from of professional athletes, and the genes line up in the best possible way, and you become Arch Manning, and you're 100% the real deal, and you're everything that your family brand would suggest that you are. But 9 times out of 10, RC, the family brand leads to that player being overrated.
Very very overrated in this case, and it suckers in the analysts, the heavily paid football analysts, all of the time. And just to put a final stamp on the Marvin Harrison thing, it's not like you or I are some casual fans who just decided we don't like Marvin Harrison because he whatever. I've watched. You can be anti Marvin Harrison just by looking back to last year and going, all of the same people who told me that Marvin Harrison is the greatest wide receiver of all time were also telling me that Bryce Young was a great quarterback and was better than Stroud, Richardson, and Levis. And the chasm on that is greater than the Rashad White and Bucky Irving as Bryce Young is to the top 3 quarterbacks from last year. But everybody, except for us, we were talking about it last year, were, Bryce Young this, Bryce Young and that. Then it was, and Quentin, we need to get a load of Quentin Johnson. Look at him in 7-on-7s. Man, he is awesome. The books are open for debate, because it's not like they're always right and we're bucking some system and we're never right. We're usually right when we see these types of media pushes, hype players. There's grounds to be anti Marvin Harrison. You can be pro Marvin Harrison if you want, but I'm shocked at the people who are so disgusted and offended defending Marvin Harrison like he's the messiah of football. There's plenty of room to question any prospect, but especially Marvin Harrison. He just feels like the Bryce Young push to me in this year's draft.
On Hard Knocks, too, his answers as to why he's not working out were not adequate. It was bullshit. I was like, this is a load of bullshit. His dad told him what bullshit to talk in front of these coaches, and all he cares about is 2024. I'm preparing for the 2024 season. That was his response.
So
I'm
you
too
can't even
busy
answer
preparing for
questions
the 2024 season. Oh,
because
really?
he's not that
He
good.
likes to
That's why
talk. He talks a big game, dude. He talks a great game. He's very good at talking. That's another thing. That is absolutely learned behavior. If you're around someone who's talking to the media all the time and just placating members of the media, members of football teams, front office staff, then of course he's going to absorb that. Of course he's going to understand how to handle himself. And if he's not actually that fast, and if he's not actually that explosive, and he wants to conceal it by refusing to ever be measured, work out in any way, well, he succeeded. You have to admit, from a PR standpoint,
totally brilliant.
If you were his management, like his agent, his people, they deserve an A+ grade. They got him drafted at 4 overall on vapor, on mediocre tape and no workouts.
Absolutely. I mean, he wouldn't answer. He wouldn't do interview. I mean, he bowed out of
no
a
straight
lot
answers. I'm
Yeah.
preparing for the 2024 season.
And
Can you imagine?
He plays a little soft. He comes off personality-wise a little soft. I mean, you're talking about a guy was raised in a multi-million-dollar household that had the best trainers. He was probably running, routes from the old Colts playbook with his dad and with high-paid trainers since he was 8 years old.
Right.
So, I mean, they've squeezed all of the juice out of that guy to get him to the point where he's at now, and they managed his candidacy in the draft perfectly.
That's right.
I think there's going to be a reckoning coming when if he's defrauded everybody. Like if he's not good, if he struggles, Bryce Young is already a pox on the entire system. The Giants' hard knocks is a pox on the entire system. If Marvin Harrison goes down with Caleb Williams, I mean, they need to burn it all to the ground. They won't, but they should.
We'll get to Caleb Williams in a minute. Odunze, though. I love Odunze. Both Odunze and Nabers have the mentals that I love from a wide receiver. Nabers has that chip on his shoulder where he has that angry streak, and Odunze has that work ethic that you can't teach. He has that desire to be the best. You could the hunger. Their hunger manifests in a little bit different ways. Malik Nabers a little more edgy, but I like that. You know who else is edgy? Amon-Ra St. Brown. Right? And Amon-Ra St. Brown was brought up in a household that was a little bit less cushy. And his dad wasn't insisting that they bench him, that he watch for 2 years. Right? His dad was teaching him how to lift weights, and his dad was supporting him in every step of the way and saying, my son should start on day one. Like just infusing him with confidence and that dog mentality. And that's what both these guys have. If there's one guy that's like the polished locker room guy that I would want, who lead by example, an incredible communicator, like that's also very valuable in terms of the rapport he's going to develop with his quarterback. Odunze, man, almost historic level prospect in that way. So the Giants, they could have gone either way and been successful getting Odunze at what, pick 9 to the Bears? Pick 9 or 10. What a pick.
The talent level of Nabers, Odunze, and I bring Lad McConkey into that discussion as three truly gifted receivers that when you put it on the tape, when you check their background, it's like, man, guys like these rarely come around, but then all in the same draft. Again, you watch Nabers, you watch Odunze, you watch McConkey, and you listen to them in interviews, you check it, and then you watch Harrison. It leaves me so flat on Harrison. I
You're
don't know what
saying
all these people are looking at.
you're saying Lad McConkey is straight up better than Marvin Harrison.
Yes.
I'm willing to say it's Odunze and Nabers for sure. Now, I'm not drafting Odunze over Harrison in seasonal fantasy football because Odunze has Keenan Allen, a rookie quarterback, and of course
Yeah.
DJ Moore, who I'm very, a very big fan of. Plus, like multiple tight ends that catch passes, a bunch of running backs, 3 running backs that are quality receivers out of the backfield. So there's a lot of target competition in Chicago, especially this year. So I'm not saying, Odunze is going to outproduce Harrison this year. No. But we've seen this before where it's possible that because Harrison is going to be granted every benefit of the doubt and he's going to be the anointed one, the wide receiver one heading into this season, he's going to get all the opportunity this year. And that is the path to having a rookie year being your career year. So we could be looking back in 8 years at the end of Marvin Harrison Jr.'s career, and 2024 was his high watermark of production.
I think that is very likely to happen, that he peaks early because he gets applied a ton of targets because the coaching staff is going to set it up that way. I think there could be I think you get a ton of targets early. Then when it shows that it's not fruitful, or as fruitful as they'd like it to be, because he's going to draw every corner, every top corner on the other side is going to be on him. And not only are they going to be on him, but he's going to be like a litmus. They're going to be waning all week. Like, I'm going to take on the great Marvin Harrison. And when they're able to easily handle him, it is going to be embarrassing. And then I would not be surprised after a few weeks of that Kyler Murray shifts his way to the really best wide receiver on the Arizona Cardinals, Michael Wilson.
Oh, baby! Oh, my God! Oh, I want to hear it so... Oh, I love it. I love it. I love Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson is a sports car wide receiver that just was injured every year and never had the ability to stay healthy. And then he stayed healthy last year in the NFL. So what matters to me is that you can stay healthy in the NFL. And he was more productive than most third-round receivers as a rookie in the NFL. And the funny thing is, the buzz in camp, the rapport in camp, the coach speak and the player speak in camp is directed more toward Michael Wilson than it is Marvin Harrison Jr. I find that interesting.
And Kyler Murray is saying more glowing things about Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch than he is Marvin Harrison. They're not taking pot shots at Marvin Harrison. I think they're just being given the typical, I need to be complimentary here, and he's pretty good in 7-on-7s. But Kyler Murray said that he said that if Greg Dortch were 6 inches taller, he'd be one of the top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. That's from the quarterback who's going to be distributing the ball. So he's got Dortch, and then the words he says about Michael Wilson, and I think he spends a lot of his time with Michael Wilson working out the rapport that they're getting. Like, he's got 2 great other options. If Marvin Harrison is not getting open, I don't think Kyler Murray is just going to keep throwing him the ball and hoping something happens. This could be kind of crash and burn in short order in Arizona, and it is going to be a mess on the NFL scouting system.
Trey McBride is also a key integral member of that passing game. And at first I was like, what is the case for Trey McBride over Dalton Kincaid? Dalton Kincaid is going to be funneled targets. But Trey McBride was straight up better than Kincaid in every way last year. So the way that McBride crushes, the way that McBride is the tight end one this year, is if what you're saying happens and Marvin Harrison is fed targets in the first few weeks and Kyler Murray becomes discouraged by it, then it's all systems go for McBride and Wilson in the second half.
As Wilson comes on, and I think Dortch is one of the hidden gem pieces of a puzzle. I'm not suggesting that he's fantasy worthy at this point, but he's got options that he didn't have. They were missing guys last year. You had Josh Dobbs was their quarterback at first. I mean, Michael Wilson was starting to show sparks with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. They've got other options. The reverse of that is all of a sudden in Buffalo, the options, Diggs has moved away. It's, they're almost clearing the way for Kincaid, where last year McBride had a window where a lot of guys were out temporarily hurt and Marquise Brown was playing through an injury, and then McBride had a nice run. I think this year with Harrison added in, there's just, to me, there's going to be too many targets taken away to get top five enthusiastic about a very good but not special to me Trey McBride, where I think Dalton Kincaid could be the best receiving tight end in the NFL as a talent.
He is.
We could talk about
I think,
the target levels and all of that.
I think, do you know who the best talent receiving tight end is? The receiving tight end that's the best at catching the football, making plays down the field, short, intermediate, deep, quick slant, double move. Do you know who the best receiver, the most talented receiver at the tight end position is in the NFL right now?
I know who you're going to say. So there's three criminally underused elite tight end talents: Kincaid, Pitts, and you're talking about Evan Ingram.
No.
What?
No. I'm talking about Brock Bowers.
Oh, yeah, throw and put Brock Bowers into that as well.
Gotcha. See how I did that? So it's Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers, incredible. I'm actually really excited to see the mayor, Brock Bowers. Everyone's talking about 12 personnel. And for some reason, the 12 personnel in Las Vegas isn't discussed as often as with some of these other teams. Even in Buffalo, with Knox and Kincaid, I hear about it more. But it's actually going to be quite interesting how they deploy when you have a top elite level target earner out at X in Devontae Adams, and then you have the two tight ends working off each other. With Michael Mayer was an elite producer. I know that you did not love Michael Mayer last year. You did not love his tape. You preferred Kincaid's tape, even though Michael Mayer was Mr. Football at Notre Dame. You came on this program and said, I didn't see it. I understand the brand is very strong with Michael Mayer, but I don't see what some scouts are seeing when they put him at the top of their board. I love Kincaid. I love Laporta. And so I have drafted two players in every draft that I've had that's an expert level draft. Nabers and Kincaid. Because I think it's like, what am I missing here? Like with Nabers and Amon-Ra, I see two guys that now and in the near future, that I think they're going to be going back and forth as the league leaders in receptions. And when I look at the landscape, the pace of play, the matchups that Buffalo is going to face week in, week out, how many points they're going to score, red zone visits, all the ways that fantasy points get scored. How can you not have Kincaid in play? Right? When we're looking back 6 months from now, there may be a debate, or it's even possible that there is no debate between Laporta and Kincaid, that it's totally flipped. You could see that, right?
Oh, I think it's coming.
It's coming.
It's going to happen.
The flip is coming. The flip is coming. So the flip is going to come where the Bronny James of the NFL is going to slip well behind Nabers, and then a year from now will slip behind Odunze, because Odunze is just that phenomenal. So you think go trade for Odunze at the beginning of October? Is that what you're going to do in Dynasty?
That's the way I would, given those choices, I would avoid Odunze in redraft or Dynasty, and then turn around and come back and try to get him later, because I think the Bears situation is going to be possibly on the verge of collapse because of Caleb Williams. But even if they're plausible, you've got all those wide. I don't know how he's going to outdo DJ Moore and Keenan Allen to the point that the general public loves and adores Odunze. I think they'll get frustrated with him. At
Right.
best, they're going to get frustrated. At worst, it's going to be a volatile powder keg that goes off in Chicago when Caleb Williams runs into problems.
I love how you put it. Runs into problems. So you did mention Lad McConkey, better than Marvin Harrison Jr. What a gift. Like, Jim Harbaugh waits and waits and waits to go back to the NFL, finally finds the perfect situation to go back with Justin Herbert, a top 10, top 5 draft pick, gets Joe Alt, a generational left tackle, you would agree?
He's really good.
And then to get McConkey at the top of the second round, I mean, talk about setting up like an coaching hire with the best possible draft pick sequence, right?
It was a great draft overall, but definitely a great start. But when I think of McConkey and all the wide receivers that we're talking about, if you talk about Marvin Harrison, you have to evaluate and go, man, Michael Wilson super talented. What's Trey McBride going to do? Amon-Ra St. Brown, man, he's got that role so carved out. He's only got Laporta really to fight for targets, but Amon-Ra's always going to get his. Nabers has got, maybe there's going to be some Wandale. When you look at Lad McConkey, you look at their depth chart and their tight end, you go, is Herbert going to throw every single pass to Lad McConkey, which is a perfect setup because Lad McConkey will get open on any corner in a blink, and Justin Herbert has one of the strongest arms in the NFL. It's going to be better than Keenan Allen someday. I don't know if it'd be right off the bat, but I think it's going to be hot right off the bat. But they're the perfect combination. But just like with Amon-Ra, there's nothing, Cornelius Johnson, they're not going to be, DJ Chark is not going to be overtaking Lad McConkey. Hayden Hurst is not going to have a Laporta year while McConkey's watching it happen. This is it. I really like McConkey, but he's so in the perfect situation. You wish Odunze was in that situation. You wish any of your favorite wide receivers was in that situation.
He ran a 4.39. Right? Well, technically at his pro day, I think he ran a 4.34 and it adjusts to 3.9. And he also had an above average burst score. So he's super athletic as well as being technically sound.
And I don't know if you've seen him lately. He is in the weight room, man. He is starting to get yoked up like he's a little running back. He's not when he was first at Georgia, a little thin, little wiry, still great, but he's now starting to get yoked up, and whatever his 40 time, whatever, you just watch that guy go, those are probably the best feet you could see outside of maybe Justin Jefferson, just for pure, I can get open on anybody. He's already one of the 5 best route runners in the league with his feet right now.
You know, 2 weeks ago, I'm looking at the ADP tab on Player Profiler. You know, Keon Coleman and Ladd McConkey at the same best ball ADP on Underdog.
I'm not, no disrespect to Keon Coleman, but I mean,
no disrespect to Keon. No, please,
they shouldn't even be in the.
Yeah,
I don't know how they are in the same ADP range. Just situationally, even if they were both, if you said both of these guys are the same grade, they're great. One situation is about as perfect as it will ever be in the NFL because there's too many good wide receivers now, and there's too many trios and quadruplets like in Green Bay and Seattle and everywhere else where people are talented guys are starved for targets. McConkey's like the last time we'll ever see such a setup where he is so clearly the guy, like Amon-Ra before Laporta got there. But Coleman's got all comers. He's got a generational receiving tight end on the team. I think Curtis Samuel's one of the best worker bee wide receivers talents there is in the NFL, and Shakir is just like him, also in that group. So
right.
I like Keon Coleman, but I don't like that situation for fantasy.
No. One of the great stacks where you could just draft Josh Allen, draft Kincaid, wait, then you can triple stack and you get Kincaid with Curtis Samuel with Shakir, and you can have the top 3 receiving options for the best quarterback in the league. And it won't end up costing you that much. I mean, what a gift. Very rarely am I out here saying, I need to get all the Bills. That just is not something I was doing last year or the year before. I've never done that. I've never been the guy that's out here getting all the Bills. Got to triple stack Josh Allen. That's never been a strategy. You can go back and listen to every show. I never talk about stacking Josh Allen, right? This year, if there's a quarterback you're going to triple stack, Josh Allen triple stacks are delicious as long as one of those receivers is not Keon Coleman.
And in the past, it was hard to put a stack together on the Bills because you're like, Allen Diggs, Gabe Davis. I think I'll go elsewhere.
Yeah, and if you're in a tight end premium league, Dawson Knox is not going to get drafted. So this is one of those things where it's like, I have Kincaid, and I have not drafted a backup tight end in any of these leagues where I have Kincaid. I'm not drafting a backup tight end. If Kincaid gets hurt, I'm simply going to put all the fab in on Dawson Knox. That's all I'm going to do. And so I know that Dawson Knox is productive. He's one of the ultimate handcuffed tight ends. And I also know that no one is going to be bidding huge because by the time the season gets underway, everyone's going to have their tight end. The guy with Pitts, the guy with Laporta, they're not going to be going after Dawson Knox. So I don't need to carry a backup tight end. In so many of these leagues, especially expert leagues, I see most people drafting 2 tight ends. They draft 2, sometimes 3 quarterbacks. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you guys are going to churn through these quarterbacks. You're going to churn through these tight ends. And I don't even care because I'm starting Kincaid. And if he's not playing, I'm going to go use 10% of my budget to go lock in Dawson Knox, and no one else is going to be bidding more than a couple bucks on him. So there's no reason, there's 0 reason you would need to draft a second tight end if you have Dalton Kincaid. Just another little interesting sort of a micro reason, winning on the margins, to draft a guy like Kincaid. And, circle Ladd McConkey. There's so few receivers that you know can put up alpha type numbers. That's why 0 RB is so popular this year and why I've been doing it so often. And at the expert draft, I was the only one going 0 RB. I was like, 0 RB alert! 0 RB alert! Right? Zero RB alert. And I was like, wait, you mean I'm the only one? I was like so confused. I was like, this is clearly optimal. I don't know what's going on here. But if there was one receiver that you could say this guy, not Xavier Worthy, who I grant you he has upside. It's true. But if you had to pick one guy in the middle rounds and be like, this guy has the sickest upside, it would be Lad McConkey.
Arguably the most undervalued single player in fantasy football right now.
And last year it was Rachaad White.
Last year it was Rachaad White.
And this year it's Lad McConkey. And you did allude to the potential tempering of expectations that may be necessary with Rome Odunze in the future because he's tethered to Caleb Williams. You don't necessarily think that's a positive thing. And we're going to get into it after this. This episode is made possible by Underdog Fantasy, and Underdog Fantasy is the leader in best ball. When you go to join an Underdog Fantasy best ball draft, it fills very quickly, especially now. It's Best Ball Mania season, baby! Best Ball Mania 5! I can't believe they're at Best Ball Mania 5 already. $15 million in prizes. They're giving out $15 million with $1.5 million to first. Playing in best ball leagues makes you better. It helps train you on player value and strategy. And Underdog offers a lot more than just best ball contests. They offer pick'ems. My new favorite, the golf pick'ems, baseball pick'ems going on throughout the off season. Hit the pick'ems, back to best ball, hit the pick'ems. So use promo code Underworld. Promo code Underworld gets you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. So they've increased the maximum deposit bonus. It was $100. Now it's up to $125. When you get the Underdog app, use promo code Underworld and go draft your ass off. You think Drake May and Jaden Daniels are straight up better than Caleb Williams?
Not Drake May, but Jaden Daniels and Michael Penix.
What about J.J. McCarthy?
No. I think McCarthy, May, and Williams are all in trouble.
So you think this quarterback class is just straight up fraudulent?
Yeah, I think when we talked about it pre-draft, I'll make the same statement today as I made then. The best quarterback in the 2024 NFL draft is Will Levis.
I don't get it.
Will Levis is better than any of these quarterbacks that got drafted in 2024.
What? So you think last year was a great quarterback class?
I think it was amazing with Stroud, Richardson, and Levis. I think they're going to be top end in the NFL.
Wow. But then this. So, wait. How does it come to be that the overall capital spent in the draft on quarterback was higher this year than last year, if the talent disparity between the two classes is so wide in the other direction?
Desperation.
Wow. The one guy in this class that has struck me as most likely to be overrated is J.J. McCarthy, just based on all the winning, right? The system. You can't say Bo Nix because I don't think people think of much of Bo Nix. So I don't think you can say Bo Nix. And we're going to be looking back and saying, oh, well, so what happened? Drake May was just saying all the right things. They were very good during the process. They impressed scouts with their mental acumen, their information processing. Like, how could they convince so many teams to take them all in the top 10?
I'd go back to the year prior. How was everyone convinced on Bryce Young? And it was the interview and the dinner meeting with David Tepper that tipped it over in favor of Bryce Young. I would rather watch the way that they play than have a sit down interview and see what they regurgitate back on a chalkboard with all your plays. Show me your pocket awareness and toughness and your an unflappable ability with a strong arm in the pocket like Will Levis. I don't need to see what dinner fork you use and the right corporate speak that you say and how you want to be a winner and you want to be the best. They all want to do that, but
You
there's
mean
only a
like Marvin
handful.
Harrison?
Yeah,
Listen. I don't have time. I have no time for this. I'm preparing for the 2024 season. I don't have time for this workout. I don't have time to run in a straight line for you people. Right? And I heard that Will Levis was rough around the edges. That was what you heard last year in interviews, that some teams were not impressed, but that all these teams were impressed with Drake May and how he carried himself and how he was able to, regurgitate back the play that was just called.
I've watched interviews with Drake May and I walked away thinking he is nice, likable, soft, and comes off as a bumpkin. But he may regurgitate their plays back to them. Last year, it was C.J. Stroud scored poorly on that mental acumen test that was all the rage last year. They were
The S2
advertising.
score.
They were.
Oh, by the way, yeah. Bryce
You
Young
haven't heard
single-handedly
one
killed
thing
the
about
S2
that.
score.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Bryce Young scored
Bryce
at the top.
Young. Congratulations, buddy. We had a whole new evaluation system for mental acuity, and you just destroyed it. I mean, the people that were behind the S2 score that invested so much in it, they had to be beside themselves with anger over what happened with Bryce Young last year.
And most of the whole football world was fleeced by the testing, the game of telephone where everybody is just echoing what everybody else was saying. Like, how could you not watch Bryce Young and realize there was going to be a potential major problem? Slash, how could you not watch Stroud, Richardson, and Levis and go, oh my goodness, look at the talent there? To me, Levis is Baker Mayfield's warrior mentality with Justin Herbert's physical ability and arm talent. And now they've built a kingdom for him for the passing game. It's no more Derrick Henry run game with Mike Vrabel. They built him the perfect system.
So in this one expert league, I did draft the Bears to stream against Levis in week 1. That's a mistake, you're saying?
I think it's going to be a mistake. I would be looking at Seattle or the Chargers for if you're looking for a week 1 streamer. I would not be going into Will Levis. And I think he faces the Jets the following week. Those are not 2 easy defenses to go after. If Will Levis comes out of the first 2 weeks good, it means he's great because those are 2 tough matchups right off the bat. I think he's on the road with both of those. If Will Levis mows through those games, it's game on. And if he struggles, I'm not dissuaded by it because those are 2 tough games. He's got a tough early schedule, but that team is so built for the heavy passing game, and Levis is so talented. I think he's good. I have personally bet the Titans plus the points in that week 1 matchup. As soon as the lines were announced, I was all over the Titans in that game. You got everybody hates Levis and everybody loves Caleb Williams. So I am going the complete opposite, taking the points and playing the money line straight up that the Titans win that game.
I'm with you on May. I understand the theory of the case, with May, and certainly with J.J. McCarthy. I understand the theory of the case. Caleb Williams also was viewed as soft. Caleb Williams was not super celebrated for his ability to inspire the locker room. He wasn't, celebrated for all of like the coach speak, regurgitation exercises. That was not the reason why Caleb Williams went 101. There is talent there, right?
Better than Bryce Young, but I think there's a possibility that this is going to struggle out of the gates and collapse, and there's going to be all kinds of problems with him, with the Bears staff. I don't think Caleb Williams is a very good pocket passer. I think he is rattled in the pocket. He likes to run around in circles, which you can get away with in college. And if he was, Jaden Daniels fast, maybe he makes it work for him in the pros. I don't think he's Jaden Daniels fast. Williams makes good decisions when he scrambles around and does a Fran Tarkington thing, and then is open to throw downfield with receivers who broke off the routes and lost coverage. But when you leave Caleb Williams in the pocket facing high-end defenses, which there weren't that many in the Pac-12, especially the year that he won the Heisman, it's just not good. It's not like watching CJ Stroud work. It's not even like watching a Levis work or
look at Caleb Williams' numbers last year next to Bo Nix's.
Yeah, if somebody says, "Oh, the number, look at the production," you have to then argue that Bo Nix should have been in the conversation for the 101 in the NFL, and Penix, and they raced to Penix. If Michael Penix never had ACL injuries, I bet he would have been the first quarterback taken in the draft.
He has an incredibly quick release.
And there's something I was watching yesterday, scouting a cornerback from Arizona, but I was watching hit that cornerback work against Washington to see what kind of test with Odunze and Polk and all that. And I was just so impressed rewatching again Penix working the field and going to second and third reads, and so in control of his game, and such a quick release when he sees it. When it's there, he sees it and he makes great throws.
It's stunning.
But the throws he does not make, the way he sees something that's not there and then moves to the next thing and then hits it and finds it, it's a rare ability that, to me, I did not see with Caleb Williams. There's only, rare few high-end quarterbacks that can do that. And that's what one of the primary things I look for when I'm scouting quarterbacks. I just did not see it in Caleb Williams. And I mean, you watch that Notre Dame game of his last year and you're like, how is this guy even a first round draft pick?
So in this expert league, this FSGA league, I waited. I was one of the last to take a quarterback, and I ended up with Jaden Daniels. And I was talking to Sam Factor from Walter Picks, and he also was waiting on court. And so we're colluding, right? We're table talk, and we're out in the open, talking amongst all the drafters. And I'm like, dude, when are you taking a quarterback? He's like, when are you taking a quarterback, right? And I'm like, well, okay. And then so he ended up waiting a couple extra rounds after I took Daniels. He waited a couple extra rounds, then he got Caleb Williams. And I was like, oh wow, so that's pretty strong. Like, I don't know. If I knew I could have waited a couple extra rounds, I might have done that and drafted Caleb Williams. Now, based on what you're telling me, and again, Jaden Daniels, I also drafted in the Scott Fish Bowl. For some reason, I'm trying to stack LSU in the NFL. I'm like,
Clyde Edwards-Helaire is your running back.
Nabers stack. Wait a second. So that, yeah. and Kincaid, though that's not in any way related. So there's no through line that I can go from LSU to Utah. That's not a thing, or Buffalo. But yeah, those are my guys, man. Those are my guys, and it just seems too easy. Sometimes it just seems too easy while you're doing it, while it's happening, while you're in a draft room, and you wait that extra round, and then Daniels is still there, and you're like, oh my God, I'm getting Daniels. This feels so good, and I didn't have to trade off anything that I would have wanted. It just feels so good to get Jaden Daniels. And we talked about this on the Sonic Truth show. If you're in a super flex draft, and there are still rookie drafts happening, there is still dynasty rookie drafts happening. There's a lot of leagues. The people that are listening to this show all year round and that they're on FF Metrics, your site, they're not in too many leagues where the rookie drafts happen in August.
Right.
But a lot of rookie drafts, in fact, I think the two most popular months for rookie drafts in Dynasty are May and August.
I would agree.
If you are in a 2QB or Superflex rookie draft, you have to leave that draft with Michael Penix. We talked about this over and over and over again. You have to get him. He goes in the early second round. It makes no sense. Once McConkey is off the board, you go Penix, but I would rather have Penix than even McConkey. Because in Superflex, that guy is a massive difference maker for the next 10 years. Kirk Cousins is a one-year rental, and he's coming off a ruptured Achilles. I'm not drafting any Kirk Cousins this year, not just because of the Achilles, not just because of the ADP, but because I'm concerned that if he does miss a game or two with a shoulder injury, Penix comes in and is great, it's over. And he's not coming back in.
I had that same exact conversation last night that if the Falcons get out to a slow start, let's say they go 0-2 off the bat, and then Cousins gets concussed or broken finger and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Even if it's a concussion and it's halfway through the game and they put Penix in, potentially when they get a load of Michael Penix hitting right off the bat, which is walking into the league and tearing it up and showing a more flair, more whatever, where Kirk Cousins kind of feels boring. When they inevitably then go back to Cousins, if he doesn't come back and rip off a winning streak and throw, the fans are going to be beside themselves wanting Penix. I think it could be a very short stint for Cousins in Atlanta. And if there's no injuries involved, it's probably going to be just this 1 year from his aspect, because I think he feels burned by what went down in Atlanta. But so I think he's willing to go, and there's going to be takers for him. They're going to be able to move him and get something good for him. But
this is the case against Drake London in best ball, is that stacking him with Cousins is terrifying. That is my number one argument against Drake London. His ADP has so far surpassed his historic production that makes me nervous.
He's
and
fully
then his stacking
priced.
partner is not a sure thing for the full season.
He's priced for perfection already. He's got an incredible talent at tight end, and Darnell Mooney is a hell of a talent that's hanging out with Kirk Cousins. He and Kirk Cousins are friends. Kirk Cousins was colluding and talking to Mooney ahead of time to all come to Atlanta. I don't think it's a given that Drake London is going to be the obvious automatic number one, everybody else is in the background scenario before you even get to whether Cousins is going to make it through this season or not.
Let's think about the players around the league that can't afford a separated shoulder. Guys that can't afford a high ankle sprain. Right? There's going to be some guys that we talk like a Kirk Cousins. He can't necessarily afford that to happen to him. because the guy behind him is better. I'm thinking of DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift has a high ankle sprain. They get to see Roschon Johnson in an all-purpose role. You're not getting your job back. Are there some other players around the league where you think they have everything riding on full health this year, because if they miss games, they're going to be exposed?
I wish it would happen to Najee Harris so that Jalen Warren could get his rightful opportunity.
We're not wishing injuries. These are professional athletes. These are gladiators. They're putting their health and their brain function, their long-term brain function at risk by playing a gladiator spectacle in front of us for our entertainment. Najee Harris, listen, I drafted Najee Harris in this FSGA league. It was my first running back. He's not going to get hurt. He doesn't miss time. And I got to tell you, RC, as much as we love Jalen Warren, I think we've learned our lesson over the years. 5 years ago, I would have been drafting Jalen Warren over Najee Harris. In fact, in this expert league, Jalen Warren went a full round ahead of Najee Harris.
Wow.
And in all the running backs were exhausted. Stevenson, long gone. Aaron Jones, long gone. All these running backs are long gone. Pollard, long gone. And there was Najee Harris, and I had to hold my nose and push the draft player button on Najee Harris because I had no running backs and I was going 0 RB. And when you actually take a step back and think about it, he's in the final year of his deal. He is a popular locker room player. And the NFL does not fuck players like Najee Harris. The locker room will not allow the team to fuck the popular players, the core players on the team. If it's a DeAndre Swift and you're aloof and you have no connection with the team and you're doing the bare minimum at every step of the way, then you're going to be cuttable, tradable, you're going to be very expendable. But the organization will do the right thing for certain players, especially a player that was drafted in the first round, who they didn't pick up the fifth-year option for, who's been a team leader. They're not just going to wake up week 3 and bench him. I think that's very unlikely, and that's why I think Najee Harris is like one of those pukey safe picks.
Yeah, I totally agree. I do not like Najee Harris as a player. I think he's getting a lot of the Alabama bump, the Marvin Harrison bump. He was supposed to be great, so we're going to try to make him great, and we're never going to replace him, even though the guy behind him is outplaying him at every turn.
Every turn.
You're completely right. In the end, what Pittsburgh wants to do is run the ball up the middle and play defense, and that's to Najee Harris's strength as well. So, yeah, they'll never purposely replace him. It is going to take an injury for him to be gone. But back to your original question, I just thought of one that I think you'll agree with. A guy who better not be out for a while because the guys behind him or that work with him, if they get the opportunity to shine, it's going to take some of the bloom off of the rose, and that's Chris Olave better not miss a lot of time with Rashid Shaheed and A.T. Perry sitting there. When people get a load of those two, if they ever got the heavy workload from Olave, Olave's not coming back in and just the automatic number one that gets all the targets anymore.
Here's why I can't draft Chris Olave in the second round in best ball. Can't do it. Won't do it. Because there's going to be offensive regression in New Orleans. They're going to run the ball more. They're going to pass the ball a hell of a lot less. Olave had 1,800 plus air yards. He has a similar skill set to Rashid Shaheed. Rashid Shaheed was small school Chris Olave. Deep threat, quality route runner. And then you have a true Z receiver, like a real intermediate separator, horizontal separator in A.T. Perry. Like, he's not Malik Nabers, but he has some of those, route running, great hands, all those things that you like about. And a lot of the round 5, round 6, round 7 receivers, they typically get drafted because they have special teams ability. And what happened in New Orleans was the reverse, was that Shaheed didn't get drafted at all, and he absolutely should have been. He didn't get drafted because he went to a very small school, and he was just under the radar from, the scouting industrial complex just completely whiffed. They missed him, right? A.T. Perry, he did get drafted, right? So typically it's the guy that can contribute on special teams, Shaheed, that'll get in the 6th round, and then an A.T. Perry goes undrafted because, our wide receiver room is set, and in those later rounds, you're really trying to find you have this whole other team, right? The subset of the team, the special teams you're trying to fill. They did not. The Saints went out and they used a draft pick on an A.T. Perry, who is just a professional wide receiver, and that mattered to me.
I think last year when we were talking about who we thought the top wide receivers were from the draft, one of my top 3 was A.T. Perry, and the thing that comes to mind when I think about scouting A.T. Perry last year, I just saw some of those Justin Jefferson type traits in him, where he's going to be capable of a lot more than just, hey, tall guy, go deep down the sidelines so that we can let Olave play around the middle, and then we'll use Shaheed for occasional bubble screen and bomb when they're cheating up and not paying attention. So everything about their pass game seems to be focused around Olave or dumping it off to Kamara, and Perry and Shaheed are almost afterthoughts. If Olave comes out of that equation and they have to use Shaheed and Perry in more of a legit role, especially Perry, I think people will be shocked by how all-around good A.T. Perry is as a technical wide receiver, as well as got the size and great hands and is just a great red zone receiver if that's all he ever is. But I think he's capable of a lot more, but we won't see it probably until Olave's missing and they have to expand his role.
I mean, the guy had like 65th percentile or above workout metrics across the board. He was a monster producer in college. He's older, right? He spent all 4 years, the COVID year. He had 4 touchdowns. He was incredibly efficient. He was one of the most efficient receivers in the league, but on a small sample. But when he got the opportunity, he delivered exactly what you thought he would be. He exceeded even your expectations last year.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be hard-pressed to even see time on the field. Fortunately, Michael Thomas imploded and gave A.T. Perry some opportunity. I'll say this. What people think Marvin Harrison is, A.T. Perry is. Now, A.T. Perry will get half the targets this year and maybe for his entire career, but the Marvin Harrison you're looking for is A.T. Perry.
You're not going to believe this. Okay, you're not going to believe this. There's no way. It's impossible. It's impossible to believe. While you were talking about A.T. Perry, I was on playerprofiler.com, and I saw the future. I knew you were going to compare him to Marvin Harrison. I was looking at him, and I go, wouldn't it have been nice if Marvin Harrison had these workout metrics? That would have been really good. To put up a 4.47, a 126.0 burst score at 6'3", 195. He's 6'3". He's a technical receiver. He's athletic across the board with an 82nd percentile catch radius. He was putting up big numbers in a major conference. There's not the biggest gap between A.T. Perry and Marvin Harrison Jr.
And A.T. Perry had nice totals in college, but then when you look at it compared to how awful his quarterback play and passing game was that he played within, his share of the activity is what makes him special. But I'm not using
27% target share in college. That's huge.
What was his touchdown share? His touchdown share had to be 50, 60+% his final year.
Well, no, his second year. The problem is his dominator rating on Player Profiler isn't as high as it could be because he actually was a mega producer as a junior. So if your best year is not your final year, we average your final year and your best year. So on Player Profiler, we average his junior year and his senior year to create a dominator rating where the touchdowns fell off, the yardage fell off slightly, but the junior year is what I focus on. 1,300 yards, 18 yards of reception, 15 touchdowns. That's a very Marvin Harrison Jr. reputation stat line.
Yeah, and I was just looking to see who his quarterback was, trying to remember. He had Sam Hartman, who is going to be a great UFL quarterback.
Sam Hartman, that's the guy with the great hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Gardner Minshew looking with none of the talent, but looks like him.
Do you think that Minshew is going to be the starter in Las Vegas, or is it going to be O'Connell?
It's going to be O'Connell. I'm 99% sure of that.
All of the talk from the beat reporters is around O'Connell having the edge. And yet Minshew is the one who goes higher in all drafts of 2 QB and superflex. I think that's an opportunity to go get O'Connell is a must draft in these 2 QB and superflex leagues, especially Dynasty. Especially. I have O'Connell in every superflex Dynasty league.
Do you look at he started basically the second half of the season with the new coaching staff. The first half of his games that he started, besides being just thrown into a situation where he was the third string quarterback and then all of a sudden he was the first string quarterback with a change in coaching staff, they played a gauntlet of tough defenses. I think they played the Jets, Kansas City, and Miami in some type of order. And his numbers they weren't terrible, but they weren't great. Then the last 4 games of the season, when he was getting his feet underneath of him, they won 3 games. They went 3-1 down the stretch. They lost a game that late to the Colts, where if they would have won it, they probably would have gone to the playoffs. In those 4 games, Aiden O'Connell, 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
That's right.
As the Raiders were rising and as Zamir White was rising, I think it's Aiden O'Connell's game. I thought that before. Devontae Adams said a week or so ago in an interview when they asked him, he just came out and said, "I think this is Aiden O'Connell's going to be the starter. I think that's what's going to happen." He said,
"Yeah,
but I'm not
I've
the
heard.
coach,
I've heard
so."
The commentary is confused. Like, why are you asking me this? It's called O'Connell. O'Connell came in last year and was a hero, and they brought in an expensive backup. Big deal. Wait, Gardner Minshew? Why are we having this conversation?
Yeah, it's nice to have a decent backup quarterback, but I don't think he's better at this stage of their careers, with O'Connell more in this modern era and Minshew starting to become a bygone quarterback. Nice backup. this is going to be O'Connell's game. And when Davante Adams says it, Davante Adams is making that decision for Antonio Pierce is going to him and saying, what do we do here? They went to him when they were going to bench Garoppolo, the new staff. So and of course you're going to talk to Davante Adams about that. Not just talk to him. You're going to say, who should our quarterback be? And when he says it needs to be Aiden O'Connell as a third string rookie who didn't get the time of day with Josh McDaniels, that's saying something. And the Raiders were much better in the second half under Pierce, under O'Connell, and then even better late when they had Zamir White and Aiden O'Connell. Davante Adams' numbers went back up to being a wide receiver one those final 4 games. I don't know how Aiden O'Connell loses this.
Discount Brock Purdy. That's what it feels like.
That's a good way of putting it. And I did not think this was coming. I thought Aiden O'Connell was destined to be a backup quarterback, but he scrapped and worked his way. A lot of people compared him to a Tom Brady type of story, skinny kid with good instincts, overlooked, all that stuff. And I was like, man, everybody's reaching with this Aiden O'Connell, Tom Brady stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, after re-scouting the Raiders' second half to get a better feel for Davante, O'Connell, and Zamir, I'm walking away going, I'm not going to say he's not going down that Tom Brady path. He's not Tom Brady, but he's going down that path of doesn't look like much, but just knows what he's doing. It's kind of like you said, the Brock Purdy story. Doesn't look like the guys were supposed to look like. The guys, not the Caleb Williams, and even Caleb Williams isn't that great of a physical presence, but they just get it done. And it's like the wide receiver. It's like the wide receiver awakening that we both had over the past couple of years. It's like, oh, we want Chase Claypool and the next Calvin Johnson, and we want all. No, it's Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's Lad McConkey. It's the lunch pail guys that are just technically better. They have the physical attributes too, but they're going to outwork everybody, and it's starting to happen at quarterback where
when those guys have a 4.39 like McConkey, or those guys have a 90th percentile burst score like Amon-Ra, that's when I'm all in, right? Just give me some athleticism. I don't want Willie Snead, right? I want some athleticism, and then you give me all the technicals and you give me the mentals and the dog factor, then I'm in. Then I'm all the way in. I'm all the way in. And you're all the way in on Zamir White too, because I can't draft. I like Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker has, he's got that dog, but how could I draft a guy where the analog version of him is available rounds later in the form of Zamir White?
Zamir White is in a way better situation. They cleared the decks for him to be their workhorse running back. They saw enough those last 4 games. I went back and watched it because I was a skeptic of Zamir White. I remembered him from Georgia just taking handoffs and running straight ahead between the tackles, not involved in the passing game, not some breakaway speed runner or anything like that. So I was a skeptic, and then I went back and watched all of his snaps in those 4 games where he was the starter with Vegas, ready to dispel it as he just was the guy that was there and got the touches. I was impressed with what I saw from Zamir White.
Stop.
Yep.
Stop. This is the absolute best. This is what you want. When an analyst is coming in with a confirmation bias openly, looking for information to confirm their prior beliefs, the level of proof that is required to reverse that entire position and opinion on that player is even higher. The bar was very high for Zamir White when you sat down and started looking at him from 2023.
And I was walking away going, there's no way this guy's going to be the future of the Raiders. Certainly they're going to draft somebody in the third or fourth round. This is going to be where Benson goes. This is going to be where somebody goes because certainly they cannot hand this thing over to Zamir White. Then I watch those games and I'm like, you know what? Not only is this guy good, I wouldn't put him in the great category. He is good, but he's put on 15 pounds of muscle. He looks like Nick Chubb all of a sudden.
Yes.
He's gone from being a 210. He's gone from being a straight ahead 210-pound tough runner to being a 220 plus completely. It's like he went to prison and has been released. Like he just worked out all his whole stint in prison. He's just a total muscle hamster now. Still a straight ahead runner, but was starting to show some shiftiness with the Raiders as his 4 starts went along. But he's also really good in the passing game. I didn't realize, because there wasn't that much to see, he's a good receiver. He's not a great receiver, but I thought he was maybe a weak to below average problematic receiver, and Dylan Lobby was gonna hog up all of that pass game action.
Dylan Lobby. Don't say it.
Zamir is more than capable. He's actually better than average as a receiver. So Lobby's that's a whole other issue.
We talked about Lobby in the last show. You all can keyword search RC Fischer, Mind of Mansion. Listen to his take in the last show about Dylan Lobby. We love Dylan Lobby longer term, absolutely. What we're really saying is this is an incredible year to go 0 RB. It's an absolutely incredible year to do it. Yes, Rachaad White is still there in the 4th round. And if you want to get an RB1 and go hero RB with Rachaad White, and I wouldn't even blame you if you want to go Bijan Robinson. Like, you're fine with Bijan in the 1st round too, right?
Yes.
Bijan is going to melt faces. Bijan's going to be the RB1 this year, right?
It's the same argument with Najee Harris, except for Bijan has some talent, where Najee's devoid of talent in my book to being a starting running back, but he's in a great situation. Bijan's in a great situation, and he has talent. I don't think he's as great as he was being promoted last year, but it was unfair because nobody could live up to that hype. But
Right.
now that things have cooled a bit and it's the next year with a better coaching staff and offense, he's going to be fine. He's going to be worth that 1st round pick.
Right. So you want to go Bijan in round 1, hero RB, Rachaad White in round 4, hero RB, green light. Otherwise, though, we're saying there are some incredible choices at running back later. Najee Harris is one of the more pukey running backs in the first 10 rounds. When I pushed the button on him at the FSGA, I hated myself doing it. But we all agree it was a great guy to have. In week 1, I'm starting him against Atlanta. And I'm very happy about it. Right? With 0 RB, you also need a starter in week 1. And do you know the last starter on the board in most drafts, RC Fischer?
Is it either Singletary or the bus?
Those guys were long gone. Week 1 starter, Chuba Hubbard. That is the 0 RB hack of all, is you got to go Chuba Hubbard. You can't have it both ways, RC. You can't have it both ways. You can't say, I saw enough of this guy. He put up great numbers last year, and he tore his ACL, and he's going to be ready for week 1. It's either you have to bet on a guy who's a black box production prospect because he tore his ACL in August, and therefore he will be ready at the start of the season, or you got to see him play and feel confident that you know who he is with the understanding that he's going to start the season on the pup. You can't have a full season of production and a torn ACL where you come back for week 1. That's not how it works, man. So for that reason, I don't understand the Jonathan Brooks ADP. It doesn't make sense to me. There's a particular build scenario, like a robust RB scenario where I can see it making sense. But I'm going to be more likely to draft a guy like Blake Corum. And I'm certainly going to be drafting Chuba Hubbard because I get Chuba Hubbard for like 4 weeks as a starter. It's not a great team, but Jonathan Brooks is also on that team. So Jonathan Brooks is a Panther who's not going to be playing in the month of September. And it's like, oh, he just goes on the pup days ago. Oh, this is news. This isn't news. Do you have a calendar? Do any of you people have a calendar? How is this news? Of course he's going on the pup. What do you mean? He's not going to participate in camp. What? So, Chuba is one of my late round guys. And then I also have to get Roschon for the reasons we talked about earlier. DeAndre Swift separates his shoulder. It's over. It's over. Right? He's going to be on his 4th team very quickly once that happens. So there's just such an incredible bevy of options. And we're talking about workhorse backs. We're talking about every down players that can do it all. Chuba Hubbard wasn't the most efficient, but you would agree he's capable of an every down role.
He showed that last year on a terrible Carolina team. I mean, the O-line especially, they went out and got offensive linemen, so theoretically it's a better situation for him this year from coach to offensive line. I still don't like it because I still think Bryce Young is terrible.
No, I know.
And that's
yes.
going to bring everything down. Yeah. But outside of that, but that was true last year, and Chuba Hubbard was producing. So it should be even better for him this year.
And Zamir White.
Yeah, Zamir White is going to be gold, I think, this year. Because Alexander Mattson is no threat whatsoever.
What about Blake Corum?
I love a Blake Corum pick in that, if you could have one of two guys, if I told you can either have Chuba Hubbard, he's going to be the starter, Brooks is never coming back, and Hubbard's going to be the starter the entire season and never get hurt. But then I'm going to say the same thing about Blake Corum, that Kyren's not coming back, and Corum ended up being the starter for all 18 weeks. Corum versus Hubbard, you would go Corum because of the Rams' surroundings. You'd be so. I love about
if Kyren Williams ruptured an Achilles tomorrow, Blake Corum would be like a 2nd round pick in fantasy.
Yeah, in the similar situations, I don't want to hear about Ray Davis. I don't want to hear about Bucky Irving. There's a lot of guys I don't want to hear about, but Blake Corum, if he inherits the kingdom, is going to be game on RB1 level work. So that to me is the Corum upside. You might not get it. You might get him into a split with Kyren, and it may be a painful wait, and maybe it doesn't pay off for you this year. But if it does, and Kyren's got a rich history of injuries, if it happens, Corum is instantly goes, like you said, he's going to end up being a 2nd round in a redraft if it were to happen at the right time.
Okay, so I have Corum as my RB1, just so everybody knows. I love Corum. And I like running backs that have proven they can win in all phases. They can win championships. They can catch 25 passes in college. They can put up 1,500 yards in college. They can score 20 touchdowns in college. And then because of the devaluation of the running back position, a guy that would have gone 1st round 10 years ago goes in the 3rd round. I'll take him. That's my guy, right? And the run blocking last year was phenomenal in Los Angeles. So there's a
And when
whole bunch of reasons to love Corum's upside, his contingent upside, but also, we talked about it, Kyren Williams, if he misses even a couple games, high ankle sprain, separated shoulder, Corum comes in, as a starter for a couple weeks. Kyren is going to be in a difficult situation coming back. He's not going to get his job back. You're not going to get your job back.
And Sean McVay has a history of switching off running backs in a blink. Last year, Cam Akers was the week 1 starter. The whole preseason was built around Cam Akers, the lead running back for the Los Angeles Rams. They got one load of him in week 1, and they go, this guy sucks. We're going to start to make the transition. And then him and McVay started fighting. Darrell Henderson was their lead back at one time. Then
the same thing happened in week 1 the previous year, where Darrell Henderson opened as the starter and shocked everybody.
Yeah,
remember?
And then they're like, well, nope. Now we're going to go with Cam Akers. So McVay can go a whole entire preseason with a plan, and then it instantly blows up and he switches out of it in week 1. So that's also on the table with Corum. And if you'd have told me, if it would have worked out that the Rams took Corum in the late 4th or early 5th, I would have went, okay, a lot of the same things apply. But the fact that the Rams went and got him in the 3rd, that's pretty good draft capital for a running back these days, especially one that wasn't so hyped to the moon. He wasn't a Bijan Robinson type prospect. So the fact that the Rams went with a purpose, with all the other things you could get in the 3rd round, and they got Blake Corum,
all their needs too, because remember, they have no depth. That team has no depth whatsoever. If there was a team that couldn't afford to draft a running back in the top 120 picks, it was the Rams last year, and they just closed their eyes and pushed the button.
So, and Kyren's fine. I did not see the Kyren season coming at all. So it would not shock me if he faltered, just straight up faltered, not got hurt, and Corum was just better, and McVay just made the switch.
The absolute last running backs that you could select and still have 2 week 1 starters with upside are Chuba Hubbard and Jerome Ford. That's like the dream 0 RB build, where you have some Corum, you have some upside plays at running back, but then you can start Ford and Chuba if you're going pure late running back. Which is what I did at FSGA. I did that because I had to get my Kincaid. I wanted Jaden Daniels. I T. Higgins is like my wide receiver 4. I wanted to get Rashee Rice. There's another mid-round wide receiver with Lad McConkey level. I think that would be the 2 guys, right? Rashee Rice and Lad McConkey, mid-round receivers that have wide receiver 1 potential.
For sure, like everybody, I was thinking, I don't think they're going to let this Rice thing go without giving him a suspension. It's so high level. Now I'm like, what was I thinking? I mean, these guys could go out and shoot somebody on national television, and their suspension would be delayed for 2 seasons. So
that's right. They've set the precedent now.
Yeah.
Every week a new guy gets suspended, but they're defenders. A lot of them are defensive players. And they just remind you that, wait, this guy actually, was under the radar because we don't follow the second cornerback in Minnesota as closely. And then you look up and they're suspended 6 games, but that's because the ruling just got handed down. The sentence just came in. The incident happened a year and a half ago. Rashee Rice is going to play this year. And even if something happens during the season, and they won't, what happens is the lawyers will say, based on his profession, he can't come to court. So we've got to delay this until next March. Then, so they reconvene in March. His sentence comes in May, and then he gets suspended for the next year, for 2025.
And they've got the money to get the high-powered lawyers that know how to move those dates. If it needed any extra juice or help, they know how to get it done. So we see it all the time. We still saw it with Alvin Kamara. So you get a free and clear 17 games of Rashee Rice. He's definitely now undervalued.
So you had a recap. In a 14-team league, I went Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Nabers, Jalen Waddle, Dalton Kincaid, T. Higgins, Najee Harris, Rashee Rice, or Rashee Rice, Najee Harris, actually. Then I did draft Trey Benson. Trey Benson only because Corum was gone. So the problem is that you have to understand, fantasy football experts listen to this show. And I had people pointing at me and laughing as they took Corum. I thought I was definitely going to get Corum. And then someone drafted him like at least a round ahead. Will, actually. My friend Will. So that's, it's too bad. Right? But Will from Fantasy Spin, he fucked me. But that's the problem. When you give all of your advice to the public and you put it up there on a billboard in the form of a podcast or a website or whatever it is, then this is the price that I pay. I lose a competitive advantage, and it's for you. I do this for the people. Right? We do this for the people. And I see a bunch of 5 stars in our chat. Everyone take a moment, open up your podcast app, and rate the show 5 stars. Do it right now. If you love RC Fischer, you appreciate him going outside consensus, rate the show 5 stars.
I'm not coming back if you don't.
Exactly. So I was not so upset because I did get the consolation prize of Trey Benson. What do you think of that?
I think it's a hell of a consolation prize. I'd take Trey Benson. I'd put it right up there with Corum. I think Trey Benson's better than Corum, but Corum's situation is so spectacular if he gets the full share. But I love Trey Benson. He's my top running back from this class, all things being equal. So, and I think that's another situation where James Conner better not pull getting hurt again like he does, because when they get, I don't even know that we're going to make it to week 1 without them going, we can't have Trey Benson on the bench behind James Conner, because Arizona's one of those sneaky teams everybody's talking about, having a winning record, making the playoffs. That's a very savvy coaching staff. They did a great job last year. I don't think they'll suffer fools. I think if they see the difference between Benson and Conner, and if they think that they're better off with Benson, I think by week 1 that could end up happening.
That's a bold prediction.
And if it's not week 1, their schedule is so difficult out of the gates. They go 0-2, 0-3, and people start freaking out because they were supposed to be a playoff team. There will be changes that need to be made. And when they get a load of Benson, it's not like the first couple games Benson's never going to touch the ball. We're going to see him in the preseason. We're going to see him in the regular season. And when they get a load of him compared to James Conner, it's over. It's just when are they gonna decide to do it?
Trey Benson's that good.
I think so.
As a receiver as well.
Yeah, I would say he's a average to maybe slightly above average receiver. He's competent. He's fine. You throw him the flares and the screens, he's going to be fine.
Take us out of here, RC. You've been amazing. Give us one more. You've made so many. I hate to ask you for one more, but I will. One more bold prediction.
What do we want to end it on? The Tennessee Titans go to the playoffs at minimum as a wild card, but potentially win the division. But I'll say they are going to make the playoffs with the turnaround on the roster on defense and led by Will Levis, who's going to be one of the 10 or so best quarterbacks in the NFL.
You're not going out on that. That's terrible. You said a team is going to make the playoffs. That's not that bold. And you said a quarterback with a huge arm that just got a big wide receiver upgrade is going to finish top 10. That's not bold enough.
I know.
Compared to your other bold predictions,
I felt it when I was saying it. Hold on.
God damn it! I can't go out on that. That's embarrassing.
I emptied a lot.
I agree. I think it's
already.
A fun. Your position. I don't think that Will Levis is as good as you do. I don't think that Tennessee is going to make the playoffs. So I don't agree necessarily with the facts of the position. But it's not hot enough, man.
All right, you're gonna make me reach into a bag of tricks here.
You have to.
This one has got too weak a language in it, so I don't love it either. But I think Braylon Allen is going to put pressure on Breece Hall to where Breece Hall's ADP is maybe a little rich for a Jets team that's imploding. And Braylon Allen, I think Breece Hall is talented, but Braylon Allen is really talented, and he may get a lot more share in that backfield. And it may not make Braylon Allen a fantasy viable thing, but it's going to draw down Breece Hall away from his number 2, number 3 overall running back ADP status.
The NFL believes Breece Hall is a satellite back. We may disagree, but that's how the NFL feels. And with a first-round ADP, Breece Hall will be a bust.
Woo!
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.